I have to tell you that it has been hard to be a Jew in public spaces over the past 63 days. We are a community in deep pain. We have watched absolute tragedy occur in Israel, the story of every individual hostage, devastating. And we have watched civilians suffering in Gaza. To add to this, there's been an uptake in anti-Semitic incidents since the beginning of the war. College campuses have been a hotbed. From a New York Times article, in the days after the Hamas attack on Israel, Max Strozenberg, a first-year student at Northwestern University, experienced a couple of jarring incidents. Walking into his dorm, he was startled to see a poster calling Gaza a modern-day concentration camp, pinned to a bulletin board next to Halloween ghosts and pumpkins. At a Palestinian rally, he heard students shouting, "Hey, Shill, what do you say? How many kids did you kill today?" An echo of a chant from the anti-Vietnam War movement, now directed at Northwestern's president, Michael H. Schill, who is Jewish. Mr. Strozenberg's paternal grandparents escaped the Nazis just before other family members were taken to the concentration camps. Now, he finds himself in an eerie time warp, resisting his grandmother's pleas to take off the small Star of David that he wears around his neck. It's not that he's feeling safe, just defiant. The mood on campus these days, he said, is not pro-Palestinian, it's anti-Semitic. Many of us watched the congressional hearings this week. Harvard University President Claudine Gay, MIT President Sally Kornbluth, and University of Pennsylvania President Elizabeth McGill appeared Tuesday before the House Committee on Education and the Workforce, where they defended their responses to incidents of anti-Semitism on their campuses. Perhaps the most egregious remarks were when they were asked whether calling for the genocide of Jews violated the school's codes of conduct, and the answers were given that it depended on context. Now, I do want to say that there were apologies made after this, but we have to talk about this. There is simply no context where is it acceptable to call for the genocide of any group of people. The code of conduct for college campuses should include protection. A college campus is a place where students should be protected to both think and speak freely, and at the same time be protected and feel safe to simply exist. I'm not saying anything today that is not obvious, but sometimes we need to restate what is moral in times when folks have lost their way. On the Friday night of Thanksgiving, I walked home with my family at 11 p.m. after a wonderful service, dinner, and lots of talking and receiving chizuk by just being in community. My family and I wrapped ourselves in our heavy coats, hats, and gloves and began the just 3-block walk to my house. When we reached our block, with no indications of our identity, someone stopped in their car and screamed anti-Semitic slurs at us. My kids were terrified, and we guided them quickly back home. I'm lucky because it was the first time in my 46 years of life that I had ever been verbally attacked for being Jewish. I don't know how this person knew. Perhaps they had followed us from the synagogue. But it's certainly not the first time, nor is it an incident that hasn't happened again and again and again around this country. This time has been filled with anxiety, with real awareness of the anti-Semitism that exists here and all over the world, with leaders of higher education being unwilling to show the same care and respect that other minorities demand and deserve on campus, with a hate that attacked Israel on October 7th and continues to threaten Israel. All of this is true and hard and frightening. And at the same time, we cannot lose our humanity or our obligation to live as Jews in the world. At this time of Hannukah, we are commanded to place our light in a place where the public can benefit from the light. In Masechet Shabbat, the rabbis teach, Tanu Rabbanan, Ner Hannukah mitzvah la'anicha al petach beita mibachutz. The sages taught in a baraita, it is a mitzvah, it is commanded to place the Hannukah lamp at the entrance to one's house on the outside so that all can see it, so that our light can benefit those out there. If one lives upstairs, he places it at the window adjacent to the public domain. And in a time of sakana, in a time of danger, one places it on the table, and that is sufficient to fulfill one's obligation. As I walked to Addis on Tuesday, and I saw that Charles had placed a large Chanukiah, just like he does every year, in the front of the building out on the patio, as we do every year, I was scared. I thought maybe this year we shouldn't put one outside. It's a time of sakana, it's a time of danger, and maybe we need to actually take care of ourselves, put it inside, not be so public. By the way, there's a Chanukiah, not a menorah on the building itself, so we're not really hiding who we are, but it was something extra. But then I remembered that when we diminish who we are, the world literally loses light. And we can't let that happen, especially now. This time calls us to use our light to see the other, to care about how we are fighting this war, to care about Palestinian civilians, to care about putting pressure on Israel to be more precise in their attacks on Hamas, to care about getting humanitarian aid to innocent civilians who are deeply suffering. That humanity, that caring for the other is exactly why not diminishing who we are in the world matters. I want to read you something that Parker Palmer, who is really one of my teachers, I've never met him, but I love his books and I love what he writes. And he has something specific he writes on fear that I thought was very instructive. He says, fear is everywhere, in our culture, in our institutions, in our students, in ourselves. And it cuts us off from everything. Surrounded and invaded by fear, how can we transcend it and reconnect with reality for the sake of teaching and learning? The only path I know, he says, that might take us in that direction is the one marked spiritual. He says fear is so fundamental to the human condition that all the great spiritual traditions originate in an effort to overcome its effects on our lives. With different words, they all proclaim the same core message: be not afraid. Though the traditions vary widely in the ways they propose to take us beyond fear, all hold out the same hope. We can escape fear's paralysis and enter a state of grace where encounters with otherness will not threaten us, but will enrich our work and our lives. He says it is important to note with care what that core teaching does and does not say. Be not afraid does not say that we should not have fears. And if it did, we could dismiss it as an impossible counsel of perfection. Instead, it says that we do not need to be our fears. Quite a different proposition. We need to use our light in these moments to give each other chizuk, to give the people of Israel chizuk, strength, love, and a vision for tomorrow. And our light, God willing, our light will only grow. May we use it for the betterment of the world, and may we see an end to this terrible time quickly. Amen.